in court yesterday. He was facing even more charges, 21 additional charges for the murder of his 3 boys. We're going to take you live out to the courtroom right now as the judge has just walked in the room. Chad Dorman, listening to the judge right now.
All right, the court's going to call 23 CR 0407, State of Ohio versus Chad C. Dorman. Are you Mr. Dorman?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Myers, Fred Myers is present as well.
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Haynes is present. Mr. Mark DeCaldy, prosecutor for the county. Ms. Laura Baron Allen, and Mr. Clay Tharp, correct?
Correct.
All right, let's make that record. Ms. Marcone is the court reporter today, and pursuant to Ohio Rules of Appellate Procedure 9A and B, the court is going to swear you in, Ms. Marcone. If you would please raise your right hand. I, Vicky L. Marcone, having been duly appointed as an official court reporter for the Common Police Court of County, Ohio, do solemnly swear and promise to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America and the constitutional laws of the state of Ohio, and to faithfully and impartially discharge the official duties of the court reporter. Please say you will. Thank you. Could you please sign? Thank you. So, for the record, for purposes of these proceedings, the court will order that Ms. Marcone will be the official transcriber of these proceedings without any further prior trial court approval. Mr. Haynes and Mr. Myers, you file a motion to appoint lead counsel, co-counsel. You want to be heard on that before we get into the arraignment?
Yes, sir. I think we just submitted it along with an entry. Ms. Barron has signed that on behalf of the state. You know, we're both certified. I'm certified as co-counsel. Mr. Myers is certified as lead counsel. We've already talked with Mr. Dorman. He is indigent, eligible for public defender representation. We'd ask the court to appoint us. It would be appropriate.
All right.
Thank you, Jeff.
Here, so ordered. I signed that entry. I'll instruct the clerk, she knows this, to send a notice to the Supreme Court of this indictment. I want to put that on the record. Also, Mr. Haynes and Mr. Myers, there's a form from the Supreme Court. It's called an appointment form of trial counsel. I think the PD or public defender prepares that. Do you know what I'm speaking
Yes,
of?
Your Honor, Mr. Haynes and I will take care of that after we're done on record today.
That's good.
We'll bring it to your staff, and I think it falls to the court then to forward that to the Ohio Supreme Court.
I think you're right. And then the court will send its own entry to the Supreme Court verifying that the clerk has sent a copy of the indictment to the Supreme Court. So I'll make that record. All right. Does Mr. Dorman have a copy of the indictment?
Yes, Your Honor.
You've already provided that for him?
Yes, we went over with him as they were having it in jail last night due to certain security restrictions he's facing at this stage.
to, Mr. Norman, Mr. Haynes, and Mr. Myers, is he eligible then for, public defender?
He is, Your Honor.
All right. The court will sign that after he. Now, relative, to arraignment, my preference is, and thank you, Ms. Allen, for submitting to the court, the possible penalties. I went over it. I think we also, hopefully the defense got a copy of it.
We did.
All right, so what I'd like to do, and my preference would be, Ms. Barron Allen, like the last couple cases we've had, I'd love for you to go through each count independently. Put on the record what the state believes the possible penalties are. Then I'm going to turn to Mr. Myers and Mr. Haynes to see if they agree. And then I'm going to ask Mr. Dorman if he understands. And then we'll move to count 2, count 3, count 4, count 5, all the way through. Are you okay to do that?
Your Honor, may I address the board from the council table?
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Honor. And yes, I could absolutely do that for the court. I wasn't sure since counts 1 through 3 are all charged under 290301A, if you'd like to address them in group.
Individually, yeah, thank you.
Count 1, aggravated murder pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 290301A. There are multiple aggravating circumstances specifications attached to the underlying charge, including victim under 13 specification, force of conduct specification, felony murder specification, and firearm specification. The possible penalty, if convicted on the underlying charge of aggravated murder, as well as any of the aggravating circumstance specifications, is recommendation of death, life without parole, life with the possibility of parole after 30 years, life with the possibility of parole after 25 years. The firearm specification carries with it 3 years mandatory, which must be served prior to and consecutive to any imposed prison sentence. There's also a possible fine of $25,000. If convicted of aggravated murder without any aggravating circumstance specification, the possible penalties would be life without parole, life with the possibility of parole after 30 years, life with the possibility of parole after 25 years, life with the possibility of parole after 20 years. And again, the firearm specification would carry that 3 years mandatory, which must be served prior and consecutive to any post-prison sentence. Again, same fine.
All right. Does the defense agree with the recitation relative to count 1, Mr. Myers and Mr. Haynes?
We do, Judge.
And Mr. Norman, do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, as to count 2, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Count 2 is also charged pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 290301A, aggravated murder, and unspecified felony. Again, there are multiple aggravating circumstances specifications attached to that charge. The victim under 13 specification, force of conduct specification, felony murder specification, and firearm specification. The possible penalties if convicted of the underlying crime of aggravated murder, as well as any of the aggravating circumstance specifications, would be death, life without parole, life with the possibility of parole after 30 years, life with the possibility of parole after 25 years. The firearm specification, again, is 3 years mandatory, which must be served prior to and consecutive to any imposed prison sentence, and a possible fine of $25,000. If convicted of the underlying aggravated murder charge without any aggravating circumstance specification, the possible penalties are life without parole, life with the possibility of parole after 30 years, life with the possibility of parole after 25 years, and life with the possibility of parole after 20 years. Again, firearm specification is that 3 years mandatory, as well as a $25,000 fine.
Thank you. Mr. Myers and Mr. Haynes.
We agree, Judge.
Okay. And Mr. Norman, you understand? As to count 3, Ms. Barron Allen.
Thank you, Your Honor. Count 3 is also charged pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 290301A, aggravated murder, unspecified felony. It also carries with it multiple aggravating circumstance specifications, the victim under 13 specification, force of conduct specification, and felony murder specification, as well as that firearm specification. The possible penalties if convicted of the aggravated murder, as well as any of the aggravating circumstance specifications, would be death, life without parole, life with the possibility of parole after 30 years, life with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Again, the firearm specification carries with it that 3 years mandatory, must be served prior to and consecutive to any post-prison sentence, and the $25,000 fine is possible. If convicted of the aggravated murder without any aggravating circumstance specification, the possible penalties would be life without parole, life with the possibility of parole after 30 years, life with the possibility of parole after 25 years, life with the possibility of parole after 20 years, and again, the firearm specification is 3 years mandatory and same fine.
Thank you. As to count 3, does the defense agree with the possible penalties that have been recited?
Yes, Your Honor, we do.
For the record, Mr. Haynes, Mr. Dorman, do you understand? Yes. Thank you, Mr. Marinello. And as to count 4, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Count 4 is charged pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 290301B. Again, aggravated murder is an unspecified felony. There are multiple aggravating circumstance specifications attached to that count as well. Same aggravating circumstance specification for victim under 13, course of conduct specification, and felony murder specification, as well as that firearm specification. Again, convicted of aggravated murder, as well as any of the aggravating circumstance specifications, the possible penalties would be death, life without parole, life with the possibility of parole after 30 years, or life with the possibility of parole after 25 years. The firearm specification again carries that 3 years mandatory, which must be served prior and consecutive to any imposed prison sentence, and the possible fine of $25,000. If convicted of aggravated murder without any aggravating circumstance specification, the possible penalties would be life without parole, life with the possibility of parole after 30 years, life with the possibility of parole after 25 years, life with the possibility of parole after 20 years, and that same firearm specification, the 3 years mandatory, and the same fine of $25,000.
Thank you. Mr. Myers or Mr. Haynes?
We agree, Your Honor.
You agree. Mr. Dorman, you understand? Thank you. As to count 5, Ms. Marinello?
Thank you, Your Honor. Again, count 5 is charged pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 290301B, aggravated murder, an unspecified felony. Also attached are multiple aggravating circumstance specifications, the victim under 13 specification, course of conduct specification, felony murder specification, and firearm specification. If convicted of the underlying crime of aggravated murder, as well as any of the aggravating circumstance specification, the possible penalties would be death, life without parole, life with the possibility of parole after 30 years, life with the possibility of parole after 25 years. The firearm specification is 3 years mandatory and possible prison sentence. It must be served prior to and consecutive to any imposed prison sentence. The possible fine of $25,000. If convicted of the aggravated murder charge without any of the aggravating circumstance specifications, the possible penalties would be life without parole, life with the possibility of parole after 30 years, life with the possibility of parole after 25 years, life with the possibility of parole after 20 years. The firearm specification again, that 3 years mandatory, and the same fine of $25,000.
Thank you, Mr. Myers and Mr. Haynes.
We agree.
Mr. Dorman, you understand? Thank you, Ms. Marinello. And as to count 6, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Again, count 6 is charged pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 290301B, aggravated murder, an unspecified felony. Attached to that count are multiple aggravating circumstance specifications, the victim under 13 specification, course of conduct specification, felony murder specification, as well as the firearm specification. If convicted of the underlying charge of aggravated murder, as well as any of the aggravating circumstance specifications, the possible penalties would be death, life without parole, life with the possibility of parole after 30 years, or life with the possibility of parole after 25 years. The firearm specification carries that 3 years mandatory, which must be served prior and consecutive to any imposed prison sentence. A fine of $25,000 is also possible. If convicted of aggravated murder without any aggravating circumstance specification, the possible penalties are life without parole, life with the possibility of parole after 30 years, life with the possibility of parole after 25 years, life with the possibility of parole after 20 years. Again, that's firearm specification, 3 years mandatory, and that same possible fine of $25,000.
Thank you. Does Mr. Myers and Mr. Haynes, you agree with that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Dorman, you understand? All right. Thank you, Ms. Marinello. And as to count 7, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Count 7 is charged pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 290301C, aggravated murder, unspecified felony. There are multiple aggravating circumstance specifications attached, including victim under 13 specification, a course of conduct specification, felony murder specification, and firearm specification. The possible penalties are possibility of death, life without parole, life with the possibility of parole after 30 years, life with the possibility of parole after 25 years. The firearm specification carries with it 3 years mandatory, which must be served prior and consecutive to any imposed prison term. The possibility of fine up to $25,000. If convicted of aggravated murder without any aggravating circumstance specification, the possible penalties are life without parole, life with the possibility of parole after 30 years, life with the possibility of parole after 25 years, life with the possibility of parole after 20 years, and the same firearm specification of 3 years mandatory, and that same possible fine of $25,000.
We agree, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes. Mr. Gorman, do you understand? Thank you, Ms. Barron. Now, let's count 8, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. As to count 8, again, that is charged pursuant to revised code, section 290301C, aggravated murder and unspecified felony. There are multiple aggravating circumstance specifications attached to that count as well. The victim under 13 specification, course of conduct specification, felony murder specification, and firearm specification. If convicted of the crime of aggravated murder along with any of the aggravating circumstance specification, the possible penalties would be death, life without parole, life with the possibility of parole after 30 years, life with the possibility of parole after 25 years. The firearm specification carries with it 3 years mandatory, which must be served prior to consecutive to any imposed prison term, and a fine of up to $25,000. If convicted of aggravated murder without any aggravating circumstance specification, possible penalties are life without parole, life with the possibility of parole after 30 years, life with the possibility of parole after 25 years, life with the possibility of parole after 20 years, and the same firearm specification, 3 years mandatory, and the same possible fine of $25,000.
Thank you. Mr. Myers and Mr. Haynes.
We agree, Your Honor.
Mr. Gorman, do you understand? I'm sorry.
I understand.
Thank you. As to count 9, Ms. Barron.
Again, count 9 similarly is charged pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, section 290301C, aggravated murder and unclassified felony. Attached are multiple aggravating circumstance specifications, including the victim under 13 specification, a course of conduct specification, felony murder specification, and firearm specification. The possible penalty if convicted of both the aggravated murder and any of the aggravating circumstance specifications would be death, life without parole, life with the possibility of parole after 30 years, life with the possibility of parole after 25 years. The firearm specification carries with it 3 years mandatory, which must be served prior to and consecutive to any imposed prison sentence, and a possible fine of $25,000. If convicted of aggravated murder without any of the aggravating circumstances specifications, the possible penalties are life without parole, life with the possibility of parole after 30 years, life with the possibility of parole after 25 years, life with the possibility of parole after 20 years. Again, firearm specification carries with it that 3 years mandatory and the possible fine of $25,000.
Thank you. Mr. Myers and Mr. Haynes.
We agree, Your Honor.
Mr. Gorman. Thank you, Ms. Barron. As to count 10, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Count 10 is charged pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, section 290501A3, as kidnapping, a felony of the first degree. There is also a firearm specification attached.
All right, we just want to update viewers, if you're just now joining us, what you're watching right now is Chad Doberman's arraignment since a grand jury handed down charges yesterday, quite a few of them. He was initially charged with 3 counts of aggravated murder back about a week ago when those 3 boys were killed. Yesterday, the grand jury came to a conclusion, many conclusions, about what he is facing right now. And what you're seeing going on in court is the judge, Judge Victor Haddad, has asked the court and the prosecutors to go through each and every charge one by one to make sure that Chad Doberman's attorneys and Chad Doberman himself understand what he is being charged with. All 21 of these charges, he has 9 counts of aggravated murder, 8 counts of kidnapping, 4 counts of felonious assault that the grand jury came up with. So this is the arraignment. The first time he is hearing these charges in person. He's sitting there in the orange next to his attorneys, does not have on the protective green vest that we saw him in last week, but he is hearing these charges for the first time. And we may get a plea deal at the end of all of this. So we'll send you back to the courtroom to continue to listen in. I think they have about 10 to 12 more charges to go through. And we will hear what the judge decides to do next once the prosecution finishes reading off each and every charge against Doberman for the alleged killing of his 3 sons, 7-year-old Clayton, 4-year-old Hunter, and 3-year-old Chase. We'll take you back to the courtroom right now.
Specification will be 3 years mandatory to be served prior and consecutive to any other imposed prison sentence and a fine of $20,000.
We agree, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes. Mr. Gorman, you understand? All right. Thank you. As to count 12, please.
Count 12, again, charged pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, section 29050183, kidnapping, a felony of the first degree, as well as a firearm specification, As to the charge of kidnapping, there is a presumption of prison and range and total required sentencing. The minimum term of prison that is possible will be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 11 years, up to the minimum term imposed plus one half, again by way of example, 11 to 16 and a half years. The firearm specification will be 3 years mandatory to be served prior and consecutive to any prison term imposed, and a possible fine of $20,000.
Thank you, Mr. Myers or Mr. Haynes.
We agree.
Mr. Norman, do you understand? Thank you. As to count 13, please.
Count 13, also charged pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 29050183, kidnapping and felony of the first degree, as well as the firearm specification. There's a presumption for prison convicted of kidnapping, and rating those would apply at sentencing. The minimum term possible would be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 11 years, up to the minimum term imposed plus one half. Again, example, 11 years imposed, it would be 11 to 16 and a half years. The firearm specification is 3 years mandatory and must be served prior and consecutive to any other prison sentence imposed, and a fine of $20,000.
Thank you. Mr. Haynes or Mr. Myers.
We agree.
Mr. Norman, you understand?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. As to count 14, please.
Count 14 is charged pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 290501A2, and kidnapping, felony of the first degree, as well as the firearm specification. There's a presumption for prison and range those would apply at sentencing. The minimum term possible is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 11 years, up to the minimum term imposed plus one half. Again, by way of example, 11 to 16 and a half years. The firearm specification is 3 years mandatory, and a $20,000 fine.
Thank you. Mr. Myers or Mr. Haynes.
We agree.
Mr. Norman, you understand?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. As to count 15, please.
Count 15 is again charged pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 290501A2, kidnapping and felony of the first degree, as well as the firearm specification. The kidnapping, there's a presumption of prison, and rating those would apply at sentencing. The minimum term possible would be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 11 years, up to the minimum term imposed plus one half. Again, by way of example, if 11 years is imposed, it would be 11 to 16 and a half years. The firearm specification is 3 years mandatory and $20,000.
Mr. Haynes, thank you. Mr. Norman, you understand?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. As to count 16, please.
16 is also charged pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 290501A2, kidnapping and felony of the first degree, as well as the firearm specification. Again, there is a presumption for prison, and rating those would apply at sentencing. The minimum term is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 11 years, up to the minimum term imposed plus one half, which would, for example, would be if 11 years are imposed, it would be 11 to 16 and a half years. The firearm specification is 3 years mandatory and $20,000.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes.
We agree, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Norman, you understand?
Yes, sir.
As to count 17, please.
Count 17 is also charged pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 290501A2, kidnapping, felony of the first degree with a firearm specification. Again, there is a presumption for prison, and rating those would apply at sentencing. The minimum term is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 11 years, up to the minimum term imposed plus one half. Again, by way of example, if 11 years would be imposed, the prison sentence would be 11 to 16 and a half years. The firearm specification is 3 years mandatory, and possible fine is $20,000.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes.
We agree, Judge.
Mr. Norman, you understand?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Marinello. As to count 18,
Thank you, Your Honor. Count 18 is charged pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 290311A2. It is felonious assault, a felony of the second degree, and there is a firearm specification attached to that. Again, there's a presumption for prison if convicted, and rating those would apply at sentencing. The minimum term possible would be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 years, up to the minimum term imposed plus one half. Again, by way of example, if 8 years would be imposed, the sentence would be 8 to 12 years. The firearm specification is that 3 years mandatory, which must be served prior and consecutive to any other prison sentence imposed, and the possible fine is $15,000.
thank you, Mr. Haynes.
We agree, Judge.
All right, Mr. Norman, you understand?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. As to count 19, please.
Count 19 is charged pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 290311A1. That is also felonious assault, felony of the second degree with a firearm specification. Again, there is a presumption for prison, and rating those applies. The minimum term would be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 years, up to the minimum term imposed plus one half. Again, by way of example, if 8 years was imposed, the prison term would be 8 to 12 years. The firearm specification is at 3 years mandatory, and the fine is $15,000.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes.
We appreciate it.
Mr. Dorman, you
All
are.
right, if you're just tuning into WLWT, this is the arraignment of Chad Dorman after he allegedly killed his 3 sons a little more than a week ago. What's happening right now is the prosecution is going through each and every charge against him that a grand jury handed down yesterday. 21 additional charges on top of the 3 charges he was given from last week. And the Judge Victor Haddad, has asked the prosecution to go through each and every charge, which is 9 counts of aggravated murder, 8 counts of kidnapping, and 4 counts of felonious assault, to make sure that Chad Dorman himself and his defense team all understand what he's facing. Some of these carry some long sentences, but some of these charges do carry a possible death penalty sentence. So they're going to wrap them up in the next couple of minutes. I think they just went through count 20 right now, and then we will see where the judge decides to head from there. Since this is an arraignment, there's a chance that we could hear a plea from Chad Dorman towards the end. But let's take you back out to the courtroom in Claremont County to hear the last few charges before the judge continues on with this arraignment.
By sentencing, the minimum term would be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 years, up to the minimum term imposed plus 1 half. And by way of example, if 8 years was imposed, the prison term would be 8 to 12 years. The firearm specification is at 3 years mandatory, and the fine possible up to $15,000.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes.
We agree, Your Honor.
Mr. Dorman, you understand? All right, I think that covers the entirety of the indictment.
It does, Your Honor.
All right. At this time, Mr. Myers and Mr. Haynes, based upon the recitation of the indictment and all the possible charges and possible sentences, what is the plea of your client at this time?
Plea is not guilty, Your Honor.
All right.
We reserve the right
Not
to file later pleas.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Stupid ass motherfucker.
Because of
Not
the
guilty.
nature of
Fuck out of here.
Judge,
He
I
did
should
that
say,
shit.
Mr. Myers touched on it, but it hasn't been quite 24 hours since he was indicted or read the indictment, so he's going to waive the 24-hour waiting period.
Okay, thank you. Would you please, Mr. Haynes, step up, and then if you and Mr. Myers could sign as attorneys for Mr. Dorman, and then have Mr. Dorman sign.
Please sign it, Judge.
Thank you. So, for the record, Mr. Haynes, you signed, Mr. Myers signed, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
All right. And Mr. Dorman, you signed as well. All right. As the bond statement,
I'll be discussing the bond. Your Honor, as the court is aware, pursuant to Article 1, Section 9 of the Ohio Constitution, this,
Judge, we're not going to object to the bond.
We pass on.
meaning that if he's asking for, they're gonna ask for a no bond,
correct,
and
We're not opposing that.
are you comfortable with that, Mr. Cohen?
the Constitution says where proof is evident, and.
Continue, go on, continue.
Judge, I think.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. The court needs to have some understanding of the facts. What we have here is the planned slaughter of 3 little boys, ages 7, 4, and 3. The first one shot was a 4-year-old, shot in the house 2 times and sustained 2 bullet wounds to the head, causing his death. The second child shot was a 7-year-old who fled the residence, ran some 300 feet from the residence, and was gunned down from behind by the defendant. He then approached this little boy who was injured, incapacitated, alive, and shot him in the head twice. From close distance, there were powder burns on the boy's head. And then he went after the 3-year-old. There was a struggle with the mother. He ripped the child from the mother's arms. put a bullet in his head. Close range, powder burns on the 3-year-old boy's head.
He deserved the same fucking thing. Pussy
Your
ass
Honor, those
bitch.
facts are important for the court to know in terms of this being a capital case. We find, Your Honor, my conclusion is that proof is evident and the presumption is great that he be held without bail.
All right, thank you. Defense has nothing to add.
Yeah, right.
All right, the court's going to order based upon Article 1 of the Ohio Constitution, Section 9, that's been amended on November 8th, 2022. The bond in this case be no bail at the present time. And what the court's going to do is prepare an entry that contemplates that, because my normal judgment entries do not contemplate Article 1, Section 9. So we'll put one together indicating the court's order of no bail.
Good.
Anything from the defense at this time? Anything else before the court knows that the case is assigned to Judge Ferentz? And the court date, we want to work around schedules. Do we have a date?
Originally, it was set for July 5th. Is there another day?
Is that a bad day?
It's up to the attorney.
Can everyone do July 5th?
I can do that, Judge.
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Myers?
The 5th would work. I might indicate, as I'm now reminded by co-counsel Mr. Haynes, we're before this court the following day on Mr. Guilfoyle's case, and I would wonder if,
At 10:30.
obviously I'll work with both court schedules.
Well, we want to work with your schedule, but I think the heightened security is a little too much for us to have both of them
Oh, I see.
at the same time, because they're both death penalty cases.
So
But I know you come a long way, but.
that's all right. Part of the job.
All right.
So we'll be down here on the 5th for your pre-trial.
Yes,
Okay.
and we're looking at a time, because I'm trying not to insert it on his regular docket, so that Judge Ferentz has some time.
Gotcha.
It could be 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or 1 o'clock.
About 11. Is that all right with everybody?
Does that work for everyone? Okay, 11 o'clock. For the court's own edification, Mr. Dorman, can you please tell me how old you are?
32,
And what's your date of birth?
3191,
And are you a citizen of the United States?
yes.
All right. At this point then, Mr. Haynes or Mr. Myers, is there anything else that you want the court to consider?
Yeah, I think just on the technical front, we would waive the reading of the indictment. We discussed that
Thank
with Mr. Norman at length yesterday.
Thank you. Would the defense have any issue, I'm just asking, waiving time till the next hearing?
No, Your Honor.
No.
All right. Terry, can you tell me that date again, please?
July 5th, I don't remember.
And we're gonna call it a free trial. And then, Mr. Myers and Mr. Haynes, would you please sign as attorneys for the defendant, and Mr. Dorman sign, and then have one or all three of the prosecutors sign? Bless you.
We did, Mr. Dorner did, Mr. Myers did, Judge, yes.
Mr. Norman, you signed it, Mr. Prosecutor.
I did, Judge.
Right, the court signed it. Also, the court received, for the record, the appointment of trial counsel on the capital case. Here it is. Mr. Haynes and Mr. Myers, I need both of you, one to side as lead, and one as co-counsel, if you would, so we can get that to the Supreme Court. Let me make sure.
Mayor Coach.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm gonna be the trial judge on this. It's gonna be Judge Ferris. I think you need to put Judge Ferris on that.
All right, I was doing that as we were, doing all the penalties. I wasn't, frankly, I wasn't sure if it should be the appointing judge, or I think you're probably right, it should be the assigned judge.
I would think,
So,
or both, but I think you need to be on there because, the only issue is because your signatures, I don't know if these are signatures or if we can just put your name. I think we have to sign, we do have to sign. So, can we redo that?
I can't,
Just change, I don't know Judge Ferris's registration number.
I can find all that when we're on record, Judge, it takes a little bit to do.
No, that's fine, I'm gonna put that to the side, so we'll be on and try to get that. Let's see, if I have anything else on this. Anything else, defense? Anything the state can think of? Any questions, Mr. Norman? All right, court's in recess for this purpose.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.